Today's episode of Wine and Dime is sponsored by Rooted Planning Group, a fee-only financial planning firm that believes life is about events, supported by your dollars and cents. And we want to help you achieve your goals. Hop on over to www.rootedpg.com to learn more about the services. Hey, Wine and Dime listeners, Amy Irvine here, and we are wrapping up this month featuring Arceo Winery out in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. And I'd like to wrap up with something that you might not think would be a Oregon wine, but they had a Foch called Nudge. It's rather expensive, but it was quite delicious. We would highly recommend that if you're going to buy this wine that you understand that only 150 cases were made, and that's why it's so pricey. It's a 3-year aged in neutral oak, and it's a 2018 that they just recently released. So yes, it's a bit on the pricey side, but there's lots of other wines out on their website. If you're interested in their Pinot Noirs that they have to offer as well, hop on over to their website, arcelewinery.com, and we hope you enjoyed your tour through Arceo Wines, if you want to call it that, for the month of October. If you have a suggestion or any recommendations, please let us know. We'd love to hear what you're tasting. Every week, it's my goal to share financial information that helps you in both your life and Financial Vineyard. We hope it takes you from your roots to the journey of your vines and the influences in the air that have helped craft your delicious life. Like wine, life and finances have different palates that should be celebrated and not judged. Well, welcome back to the show, Anne. We're so glad to have you here today. And we're talking about open enrollment still this month. And the hot topic that we're going to hit on today is benefits that you might be missing. What do you honestly feel are some of the top things that clients are missing or people are missing when they're walking through open enrollment?
Yeah. And I think, we were talking about this a little bit ago, is that there's benefits that employees sometimes overlook, but it doesn't mean just because we mention it here that it's necessarily that you have to go out and enroll in it. It means that, hey, why don't take a second to stop and look those benefits over and see if it makes sense in your situation. I think one of those is the legal plan that employees can offer. We've seen clients, and even one of our advisors has enrolled in the legal plan and been able to use it to hire an attorney to have estate planning documents drafted, which is
very helpful.
Yeah, and an affordable way to get that done, because it's so important, especially for young families, to have the estate planning documents in place. And then, one that I see clients miss quite often is supplemental disability insurance. So they'll see that they have disability insurance, which is great, but disability insurance protects your income. And so they may have 40% of their income is covered, but if they pay extra, they can have 60% of their income covered. And, they may not realize that it's an affordable way to just protect, your income, which is so crucial. And then also there's critical illness insurance, which will pay, a set amount if you are diagnosed with a certain illness that they cover. And that one's, it doesn't always make sense for everyone, but it's certainly something to look into and see if it applies in your situation and do the analysis. It's just one that, people sometimes overlook. And then beyond that, we were talking about, not just benefits that are available during open enrollment, but also employee discounts that companies, especially larger companies, will sometimes offer that employees forget about. So sometimes for auto insurance or cell phone plans, it can be great to start there when you're shopping for a new insurance plan.
Yeah. Any kind of home and auto insurance, I think if your employer is able to negotiate as a group plan, that usually is very helpful. And like you said, cell phone plans, sometimes it's a large percentage off. I know we have like 18% discount or something like that. And it doesn't have to be a large employer. In that case, it can be, something as small as like what our group is. The other thing that I think people sometimes overlook, and I think it falls under that critical care insurance area, is hospital insurance. Sometimes you'll see a separate hospital or accident insurance. It's where I have seen those accident insurance policies come into play is when you have high school kids or even middle school kids that play a lot of sports. Sometimes those can be very helpful because it is not, those plans don't necessarily coordinate with your health health insurance. So they're like two separate items. So if you have a copay on your health insurance and you have this like accident insurance or hospitalization insurance, they'll usually give you like a set amount per day, regardless of what your copay or co-insurance is. So again, I think it's like you said, you have to do the analysis, and it might be something that is good for you at some point, but not always good for you. So it's something to not set and forget.
Yeah. And I think that's true with a lot of these. Like the legal plan may be something that you carry and you use for the estate planning documents. And, and you can explore what other coverage they offer. It may not mean that you need it every year. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, go down through the list of benefits that are offered through your employer, because sometimes you don't realize that it could be, the littlest thing like, oh, I didn't even know. Some companies I saw are offering like pet insurance. Mm-hmm. It's not like it costs them anything. It's just something that they're offering through, like a service or something like that, where you can go out and get discounted pet insurance, which is a big thing for a lot of our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Pet insurance is becoming more and more of a thing. And especially if you have some breeds that are likely to need some kind of additional care. And you usually have to get those pretty early on in the pet's life in order to actually make it, number one, worth getting, and number two, eligible to get and have coverage. What are some of the things when you're thinking about open enrollment that you would give advice on, just in general? I mean, those are benefits that you might be missing, but what are some of the things that you would be thinking about in general during this period of time?
Yeah, I think what you were saying, just going down and looking at what you have and what's available, and not just, okay, well, this is what I signed up for. A lot of people, and my husband and I have done it before, but you kind of last minute, and then you're like, well, I signed up for this last year. That's okay. We'll just re-enroll, and you don't take the time to sit down, because things can change year to year. Employers can make updates to the plans, especially the health insurance plans, and they can, what made sense for you in the past may not make sense. And so I know, it can take some time and effort to kind of dig into the details a little bit, but I think it's so important to really see, it sounds like something simple that you're just checking off these boxes, but if you have, a major illness or something that keeps you from working and you need to make a disability claim, like this is really going to have a big impact on your life. And I think sometimes we forget about that during that process. And also, I was just going to say also how the benefits coordinate with each other. Like there's an FSA accounts that'll allow you to pay for medical costs out of pocket, tax free. So you put in a certain amount that you decide on. I think the limit's around $2,850 for this year, $2,850. And it's a use it or lose it account. So you want to make sure that you're going to use that amount during the year, but that can help you. That can be a tax-free way to pay for some of those out-of-pocket medical costs. So just seeing how different benefits will coordinate with each other is important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one of the things that I was going to say too is when it comes to actually analyzing all those benefits, I think one of the reasons people just sort of check the box that I did this last year, so I'm going to do it again this year, is they've never sat down and compared things side by side. There's a lot to that stuff. And they give you about 2 weeks if you're lucky to make those decisions, and sitting down doing an analysis on all of that is really challenging. We have some, I guess, if you want to say it, tools that, people can use for some checklists. Are there other, okay, so this is self-promoting. I know we will do that analysis for our clients. But are there tools out there for people that are a, DIYer?
I'm not familiar with like a really great tool online that you can use. If you looked out there in the internet, I think HR can also be like a good resource to kind of dig in and really ask for, a lot of times they'll have benefits booklets and things that employees don't even realize they have access to until they're doing a plan with us, and we'll ask for information. But there is additional information that you can get to really dig into if you go to HR and, use them as a resource to get some of that.
And earlier this month, Kate and I talked about the fact that, when you're looking at insurance plans, thinking about what might be happening next year at that point in time and sort of mapping that out can also be helpful in comparing the plans side by side. Because like you said earlier, if you're going to have estate planning work done next year, then maybe you take out the legal plan. But if you just had estate planning work done this year, maybe you drop the legal plan. Looking at those kinds of things and thinking about, am I going to have a baby next year? Or am I going to pay off my mortgage next year? Or am my kids going to be out of the house? Is college paid for? Like thinking about all of those things is also, I know people don't think about that during open enrollment per se, because they're just going down through making their elections. But those are all things that I think can be helpful in making the decision for the following year.
Yeah, definitely. I know when we were starting to grow our family and just we went with the health insurance that was less out of pocket. I had complicated pregnancies and I knew that I was going to, be meeting that deductible, and I knew that it was going to cost a lot out of pocket. So we went with a little bit higher coverage in those years. So I think that is important.
Any other tips or ideas or suggestions as people wind down open enrollment and think about all of this stuff? Anything that stands, front and center that you would share?
I just think you brought up a really good point about thinking about what's going to be going on in your life in the next year and making sure that your benefits match up with that. And, don't just check off what you did last year, but looking through it and, taking the time. Don't wait till the last minute. Just take the time to ask for the benefits booklet, to just kind of dig into it a little bit. And if it feels overwhelming, or you've got a lot going on in this coming up year that you haven't in the past, like there are certainly planners. We can certainly help with that as well, if you do need that outside support.
Well, that was a great way to end the show, Anne. We would love to be able to provide financial planning services to you. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, hop on over to www.rootedpg.com and you can schedule a discovery call with us. If you're interested in us doing an analysis for you, we'd love to do that for you. We certainly do that for our clients every year. If you like what you hear today, please feel free to share it and hop on over to iTunes and make sure you like the show and leave comments, because the more people that do that and rate us, the more people that can find us. We're also available on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we thank you all for listening once again.
And that will about do it for today's episode of Wine and Dine. You can contact Amy through the website, www.rootedpg.com, or amy@rootedpg.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at RootedPG for the latest news. And if you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like to hear about, feel free to let us know. And don't forget to rate and subscribe the show wherever you get your podcasts. And again, thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in next time.